In 2026, many asylum officers are actively hunting for any excuse to deny you, and this video shows you exactly how to answer questions at your asylum interview so they can't use your words against you and so that you can present your case in a compelling fashion. I'm going to tell you how to answer questions at your USCIS asylum interview in 2026, and we're starting right now. I'm Brian Manning, and I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now as an asylum lawyer, well, my law firm helps immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. Let me know in the comments if you've got an asylum case pending, or maybe you're considering applying. And look, I'd especially like to hear from you if you've been waiting for an asylum interview with USCIS for multiple years. Let me know in the comments how long. Okay, here's the reality. The Trump administration has weaponized the asylum process. Officers are under pressure to find inconsistencies, to spot fraud indicators, and generate denials. Approval rates have collapsed. But look, you can still win if you're strategic. My office has kept winning cases, both at the asylum office and in immigration court, despite plummeting approval rates. And look, we're going to keep winning asylum cases. So take heart. It is possible. Okay, before we get into specific techniques, let me start with the foundation: honesty. You must be completely honest throughout your asylum case. Now, this is both an ethical matter and a strategic one. So ethically, I think it's wrong to lie to get immigration benefits. And when people lie, it undermines the system for legitimate asylum seekers. But look, also from a strategic perspective, lying is a bad idea. Asylum officers are trained to detect fraud. Look, they've seen hundreds, if not thousands of cases, and they know what fabricated stories look like. And if they catch you lying, the consequences go far beyond just losing your asylum case. You could be permanently barred from ever obtaining legal status in the United States. Green card, citizenship, any future visas, gone forever. So be honest, okay? Everything I'm about to teach you assumes that you're telling the truth. Now, with that foundation in place, let's talk about the single most important skill that you need right now: answering questions directly and concisely. When the officer asks how many times you were physically harmed, don't say, well, officer, I've suffered so much. These people, they wanted to kill me. The pain was unbearable. Look, I understand, why people respond in this way. They want the officer to understand their suffering, but that doesn't really address the question, does it? And in today's environment, a non-responsive answer is a red flag that makes officers suspicious, and it's just frustrating for the officer. So instead, say something like, I was physically attacked 4 times. I was also threatened and harassed on many other occasions. Now, that's direct. It's responsive. It gives the officer exactly what they asked for while still conveying the severity of your situation. Now, look, it's true that the part about being threatened and harassed goes beyond what the officer actually asked about, right? The physical harm. But it is related to the harm that you suffered, and you do want to get it on the record, so it is appropriate to add it here. Okay, now let me tell you about the trap catching people left and right these days. Officers love asking, what else did they say? Or did they say anything else? What else? So look, they're not just curious, they're setting you up. So here's how it works. Early in your interview, let's say you describe a threatening phone call. For example, you say the caller said A, B, and C during this threatening call. And so the officer says, okay, did they say anything else? And you say, no. Well, then an hour later in your interview, after you've discussed various other incidents and aspects of your case, the officer circles back and asks you to describe that same threatening phone call again. And this time you say, well, yeah, they said A, B, C, and D. Boom. The officer has an inconsistency. Why? Well, the first time you said it was just A, B, and C, and they asked if there was anything else, and you said no. But then, talking about it later, you added on something else, D. Okay? So this looks like an inconsistency. And in today's climate, even a couple inconsistencies can sink your case. You can protect yourself by hedging appropriately. So when you describe what someone said, consider adding phrases like, that's what I remember them saying, though they may have said other things I can't recall right now. Or something like, the incident happened a long time ago and it was traumatic, so I don't remember every word, but I do remember them saying. So you see, this builds in flexibility. It prevents the officer from weaponizing your natural human inability to remember everything perfectly. So, think about it. Look, can you repeat verbatim everything that I've said in this video over the last, say, 2 minutes? No, probably not. And the events that you're being asked to recall and talk about probably happened under traumatic circumstances, maybe years ago. And so it's completely natural that you don't remember every single word. The hedging language simply acknowledges this reality. And the same principle applies to numbers and dates. If the officer asks how many threatening calls you received and you're not certain, don't just guess and say something like, 12. Instead, say, I've received so many threatening calls, I couldn't count them all. I believe there have been at least 20, but that's an estimate. So with this, you've given the officer useful information while protecting yourself from being called inconsistent later. I can't stress enough how critical this is right now. Officers are trained to spot fraud indicators, and one indicator is when your interview testimony doesn't match your written materials exactly, or when you say two things within your interview testimony that don't seem to line up. Even innocent differences can be held against you. So when recounting what persecutors said to you, unless you're 100% sure that you remember exactly what they said verbatim, consider ending with phrases like, or words to that effect, or maybe something along those lines. With this, you're signaling that you're providing the substance, the essence of what was said, without claiming to quote them verbatim. This protects you if you describe those same threatening words slightly differently later in your asylum interview. Now, here's another crucial point. Never ever tell the officer something just because you think they want to hear it. If the officer asks how many times you were physically harmed and the answer is 0, well, say 0. You see, some people feel cultural pressure to satisfy the question with a number. That's a bad idea. It's a trap. Lying or exaggerating will get you caught and denied. Officers are specifically looking for this. Okay, similarly, if you genuinely don't know the answer, just say so. Say, I don't know, or I can't remember. These are acceptable responses. They're far better than guessing and potentially contradicting yourself later. It's okay not to know the answer to a question. Now, look, another really important point. Keep your answers short and focused. Remember, the officer is looking for reasons to deny you, and the more that you talk, well, the more ammunition you're providing. So answer the question directly, add only relevant information, and then stop. If the officer asks who you fear in your country, for example, don't give a history lesson or provide a bunch of context. Just say, I fear the secret police, period. Now, when facing yes or no questions, you can expand slightly if it helps your case. So if asked, for example, were you a member of a political party and you weren't formally a member but were actively involved, you could say, no, officer, I wasn't formally a member, but I was actively involved with the opposition party. That answer is responsive and informative without being excessive. Okay, finally, in today's hostile environment, don't let them rattle you. Officers may be aggressive, rude, or even hostile. Some will interrupt constantly. Some will ask the same question multiple ways, hoping that you'll slip up. Stay calm, stay focused. Answer each question as if it's the most important question of your life. Well, of course, this is easier said than done, right? These interviews can last for hours, and it takes tremendous mental energy to stay sharp the entire time. Because, I mean, look, officers will change topics abruptly. They'll circle back to things you already discussed. They'll ask questions that seem totally irrelevant. Don't let any of this throw you off. Take a breath before answering if you need to. Ask for clarification if you don't understand a question. And if you need a short break, you can request one. It's not a problem at all to take a quick bathroom break. You can get a drink of water, maybe do some breathing exercises, and compose yourself. The asylum office under the Trump administration wants to deny you, but if you answer questions directly, hedge appropriately to prevent inconsistency traps, stay honest, and maintain your composure, you can still win. If you're ready to take the next step and get help with your asylum case, then please call my office today. That number is 713-909-0401. And remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you live. Call us right now to schedule an asylum strategy session so that we can help you to secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's an honor to serve you in your asylum journey.